It's Tom Meyer, Superintendent, Bellevue Community School District in Bellevue, Iowa, coming to you with this week's Believe in the Blue update. This is a little longer one because it's a summary of our board meeting from Monday evening, January 8th. Going to give you some information here. Just to let you know, we do have some upcoming events. First event is our semester ends on Friday. Second semester begins next Tuesday, January 16th. There is no school Monday, January 15th for students. We do have a teacher professional day that day, but it's a day off for students as we begin the next semester on the following day. So just so you're aware of that. Some resignations we had at the board meeting. There were 5 teachers, and they are taking the early retirement incentive that was offered by the district in December. There is still some time left for that, but the teachers who are resigning at this time and taking early retirement are Brent Chambers, our high school science teachers, Sally Grutz, a 3rd grade teacher, Chris Osbaker, a 3rd grade teacher, Joni Kilberg, who is one of our instructional coaches and also teaches our some of our English classes, upper level English, and also our print com. She's also a National Honor Society sponsor. And then Wanda Kingery, an elementary special ed teacher. They will finish out the year, obviously, but they will be leaving after this year. And just want to thank all 5 of those for their outstanding contributions to our students through the years that way. They are a key component of the success of the district, key component of success of every student that they had contact with, and really every student throughout the district, whether they were in their classes or not. They are part of our backbone of our district, and just want to thank them for this that way. We do have a recommendation to hire. It was Carly LaCourse. She's going to be an elementary associate, and she has began. She had been subbing actually, but that's just so information that way. The board also discussed the Bellevue Elementary and following up with those community engagement meetings. The board ultimately decided they are looking to move forward with a new elementary building for the upcoming school year. So a lot of work in between now and then. We do have a core team that will be meeting with some community members involved in that as well, and developing some plans with the Legat Architect Group that way. But I will let you know more in the future on that. Some things that we talked about is, when would a referendum be? The earliest it would possibly be would be September of 2018. Where would that be at? We've had those discussions as well. We do not know for sure. There is some land available in different areas of the community, and we will look at that. The current elementary site is not really large enough to put a new elementary in there, or would take significant time to do that. So that it is probably not the best option at this time. But conversations are happening yet. Nothing is finalized, and just want everyone to know that we did talk about the building being on the National Historic Register. Part of the building is from, actually, I keep saying 1848, but technically if you go back in records, it's 1847 the building was built, the first part of that building. But there's that part of the building, the 1870s, 1880s, then you get into 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. What can be done with that? We are, as being on the National Historic Register, just so everyone knows, any changes interior-wise to that are going to change the look of the building, taking out big rooms, knocking out walls, has to be approved by the State Historical Society in a Section 106 meeting, they would call it. It's not that that can't be done, but it has to be preserved to the way that it was before. It cannot just be updated and redone and everything like that. If a private entity does it that way, they can do things as long as they're not using tax credits and things like that. So that is something we're working on, because that is part of the process, as well as making sure that we have a plan for that building. Some of the reasons for that way, obviously it's an old building. We actually have a steam pipe leak right now as we speak that way that we're handling, and it's okay, but it's just deteriorating some parts of the building that way. It's not to the point that it's bad or anything yet in that regard, but it's going to get to that point, and we just want to make sure and offer our kids what they deserve. As a board member mentioned there, our kids deserve a better building for their learning as they move into the world. It'd be good for the community. It's a safety aspect that way, accessibility with all the stairs, narrow doorways that wheelchairs can't fit through, some doorways that way leading into the gym specifically, just some other accessibility with handicap accessibility, and we also want to prepare our students for their future that way. So we also went over another point, other capital improvement projects that we need to be considering for this upcoming summer or the upcoming years that way. And I'm just going to give you some of those. We are doing the multi-purpose gym, that west gym at the middle school, high school, with a different floor in there. That's going to cost us about $30,000, not quite. to replace. We'll have a parquet wood floor in there. We have some other funds to utilize for that from insurance. So it's actually only costing the district, I say only about $30,000. It depends on how you look at that way. It's still a lot of money. Talk about replacing some flooring and some lighting in the high school hallways and in the high school classrooms on a gradual basis over time. We can save a lot of money economically with that, with efficiency. So looking at that, we will need to do something with our 5th grade carpet that's currently in the elementary building. Even if a referendum would go through, a building would still not be built for 3 to 5 years minimum time. We need to do something with the carpeting there. Some collaborative classroom furnitures on the docket, some lights in industrial tech building, locker rooms, our middle school locker rooms we need to make more accessible. We have a water issue in there as well with some water coming out of the shower rooms. Long story, don't know why, don't know how, but we need to get it repaired and fixed that way. We will need to do some parking lot repairs at the end of the winter. We'll evaluate where we're at that way. Looking at updating potentially the middle school, high school restrooms at some time. Some sidewalk areas we need to work on at the middle school, high school. We need to purchase a bus within the next year. We've looked at eventually, this is not in upcoming years, but a Suburban, a lunch van, a snow truck, or a truck in general. Family consumer science room updates. That way, we are getting a new copier right now in the library in the upcoming weeks, along with some new printers that will actually save us money. They will both pay for themselves within a year. We do need to get some MacBooks for our juniors and seniors next year. We will get one class of those this upcoming summer, more than likely the other class the following year. We use those for our online classes. The Chromebooks that we have for the rest of the students really don't work that well for them, so that's part of the reasoning there. We have a deal on them. We can get MacBooks for about $700 a piece, which if you go out and buy them yourself, they're about $900 or a little more. We will continue the Chromebook rotation. The Chromebooks are only $200 a piece. So looking at that, Promethean boards are those interactive whiteboards that some of your students, or you may know some students who talk about them. We also need to update some iPads at the elementary in a gradual fashion. We only have those really in kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade. There's probably do one section of 2nd grade here in the near future. Some other elementary needs, depending on what happens here, elementary cafeteria updates, elementary playground equipment is an ongoing thing. We need some green space down there. Windows need to be updated if we stay down there. Room lighting, and actually that's in both buildings, but the room lighting there. Elementary roof likely has hopefully 5 years. I'm probably pushing my luck by saying that, and we never know about the boiler, what will happen there. So those are just some general things that way the board will be discussing in February and March and making some recommendations or taking some actions here in the near future about that as well. Also talked about student conferences that way. The FBLA went to Anaheim for FBLA national competition that way. We qualified 19 students for that. With fundraising, things like that, they were in a deficit of about $7,000. The board had agreed to give at least $5,000. The board picked up the other funds for that, so it's about $7,300 they picked up. Great opportunity for our students, and they qualified for this. It was not you pay and then you get to go. They qualify, they deserve it, and it's an outstanding learning experience for them, outstanding experience for life for them that way. Mrs. Weber does a great job with that group, and want to congratulate her and those students one more time, and I'm sure more will advance next year, this upcoming year. I believe it's in Baltimore, Maryland. Our ag team, or FFA Ag, they qualified for the national competition in Denver, Colorado. They just returned from that. That was on January 3rd. They did some fundraising. There were only 5 students that went out there. Nick Deppy, a Bellevue High School student, got 25th overall out of roughly 250 students, probably somewhere in that area. The team placed in the top 15. So very good things there. Had contributions from a variety of businesses in town that way. So I want to thank those people as well for supporting our students and supporting our community as we grow and prepare outstanding graduates that way. Also, Iowa post-secondary readiness reports and the Iowa School Report Card are out. You may have seen both of these, especially the Iowa School Report Card and the TH or something like that recently. Post-secondary readiness, when we look at state averages, our graduates from 2013, 14, and 15, how prepared were they, or how many of them actually went to college that way? We had around 70% going to college over those years. Now, I will tell you the last 2 years we've had Last year we had 97% of our students go to college. The year before that it was 88% of our students. So those numbers have went up, and those numbers are not exactly accurate. I don't agree with even the numbers they have there, but that's what reported, and we're still much higher than the average across the state that way. And our numbers of students who have to take a remedial course in English or math is significantly below the state level and has dropped significantly over the last 5 years. We're at a point where right now it's about 20% of our students, and I can tell you in the upcoming years that number is going to be in single digits based on our testing and what we're seeing from students. So very positive movements that way. Can't say enough about our staff and our students are really working hard to accomplish those things. Iowa School Report Card, our high school was recognized as commendable this year, and our elementary was recognized as acceptable. They flip-flopped. I'll be very honest with you, and I've been honest with other people about this, how we got those recommendations or how we got that ranking, I can't actually tell you 100%. I don't agree with it. We are still, we're probably in the top 70% in that chunk above the 70% across the state of Iowa when we look at where our schools rank at, so that's very good. Out of all public schools across the state of Iowa, we're still performing outstanding at the elementary and the secondary level both. I did just share some things on common school finance and legislative information. The legislature opened up on Monday. No action has really been taken yet. The governor had her address yesterday. She did talk about the aspect of school funding. School funding this year will probably be between 0 and 2%. I think the governor recommended 1.5%. That is not something that most years we would be happy with, but economic conditions, that may be a great accomplishment. I've been hearing 0 to 1% is very likely. We will deal with whatever we have to deal with it, and we will succeed no matter what. Another part of that is the extension of the SAVE, that 1 cent money that's in effect till 2029, hoping to expand that to 2050 or some other time like that. That is used for infrastructure. When I talk about a roof, when I talk about windows, when I talk about anything to do with a building or even buses that way, it deals with that. So that's a huge thing for us to make sure that that gets extended. Yes, it's till 29. That's 12 years or 11 years away now, but we need to have that extended out further to allow school districts like us to make plans for the future for our buildings, for our students that way. So you know that. Common curriculum, we had a reading from the Innovator's Mindset, and it was actually on just developing that mindset of resiliency and grit and persistence. That is online here underneath the superintendent's page as well. You can look at that. But really some things that truly talked about were just making sure that we have that resiliency as students and as a school board to continue to work very hard at what we do. We need to move beyond the idea that an education is something that is provided for us and toward the idea that an education is something that we create for ourselves. As a school board, as a superintendent, as community members, what can we do to provide a better education continually? How can we have students working hard, internally motivated, intrinsically motivated, whatever it is? I think it goes back some things behind me there. There has to be a purpose in our education and what we're doing. There has to be some relevance for our students. They have to see, why do I need to know this? How am I going to use this? And it has to be related to their life. And I think we do a lot of those things in a lot of different areas in our building from PK through 12. So I want to thank everyone for that way. We also approved a wellness policy, just a follow-up from last month and the final reading of it. It's talking about physical activity, nutrition education. We're doing all those things anyway. It was not a huge change. It's not going to impact what we're doing already. We have a very strong nutrition services and a very strong background in that. Jessica Borman does a great job there. Extracurricular update, we have some games coming up on Friday at Comanche, JV and varsity girls and boys, and then the same thing on Saturday here against Mid Prairie. Wrestling is also in action. Saturday they travel to MFL Marmac. Bowling's in action. We have a lot of things in action that way. Archery's practicing as well. So there's a lot of things happening. We have a day on the hill with the school board can attend at Des Moines on January 30th, or anyone can attend that. If anyone is ever interested in going out to the Capitol and visiting with legislators, please let me know. I will actually be going out there on the 30th and staying for the 31st to meet with some people specifically on the 31st there. So just to know about that. We'll start a backpack program based on a grant that Bellevue Big is helping out with, our passion-based student interest group at the high school level, providing some supplies and food to some needy families in the community. On a confidential level, our English 105 students actually had a presentation last night on educational topics, anywhere from the Common Core to school vouchers to PE to math requirements to just educational requirements as a whole. They were all based on educational topics, and I tell you what, if you talk to Ms. Kilby, she has a video of it. Absolutely outstanding information. Students did a wonderful job. I know I talked to several of them, but they looked at books, they looked at research articles, on down the line. So just want to compliment them on their work that way. One thing I want to mention from the book here, The Innovator's Mindset, as we close here is the importance of resiliency and grit. Resiliency is the ability to come back after a defeat or unsuccessful attempt. Grit is resolve or strength of character. These two characteristics need to be continuously developed as we look for new and better ways to serve our students. Meeting with business leaders in the area, one thing, they talk about several things, but a couple of those things are that grit and resiliency, that persistence to keep working at something, having that growth mindset, showing up to work on time that way, but just really being dedicated to what they're doing and doing the best possible job at all times. So on that note, I have talked way too long today, but I want to just let you know, if you ever have any questions, feel free to give us a call and we will go from there. I'll talk to you all next week. Have a good one.